Hello and welcome to our SWOTT podcast. My name is Claire Cunnington and I'm a researcher at the University of Sheffield. Michaela, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi everybody. My name is Michaela Rogers. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Sheffield and I'm also the project lead for the SWOTT Toolkits project.
Great, thank you. So I guess what we're going to do today is we're just going to talk about SWOTT, about what it is and what we want it to achieve. And so I guess the first question for you, Michaela, is what does SWOTT actually stand for?
So SWOTT stands for Social Work Online Team Training Toolkit, the SWOTT Toolkit. I always wanted a research project with an acronym for its name, and so I spent a bit of time thinking about what we could call this project that actually represented what it is, because it was created for social workers. The toolkit design was created for social workers. It uses an online platform to host all the resources and to host some of the learning, and it's about team training, teams getting together, doing some training and then getting together in a kind of group reflective supervision and applying that learning together. So it's very much about interactive, intersubjective learning from each other and sharing your own experience and knowledge as well.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, brilliant. And what's your kind of, what's the sort of teaching approach sort of underpinning that?
Yeah, okay, so the teaching approach is very much, I'm going to use technical terms here now. So it's a peer...
As long as you explain it.
I will. The teaching approach is a peer learning pedagogy. Pedagogy simply means a theory of learning. So in adult learning theory, there is a premise that people learn better when they are doing things. Mm-hmm. And so the kind of underpinning theory of the SWOTT toolkit design is that social workers or social care professionals will learn better when they are applying that knowledge together in a discussion and thinking about a case study. So as part of every toolkit, there is some online learning, so people do some individual learning, and then they get together in a group critical reflective supervision or discussion, and they apply that learning together, looking at a case study.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So I think you've got. Is there any more that you want to say about how the toolkits themselves are structured, or do you think you've covered it in that explanation?
I think that's pretty much it. I'll just give you a kind of a summary of what is included in a toolkit and why we call them. We call them toolkits because they have everything within them that are needed for a team to do a piece of learning, a piece of CPD, continuous professional development together. So within a toolkit, there is firstly some online learning. Then there are case studies, and there are multiple case studies with each toolkit. And a case study will either have a adult focus or a child and family focus, and there might be a third which has a mental health focus, or mental health might be part of the topic of that toolkit. Mm-hmm. Each toolkit is themed and it's evidence informed. So for example, there's a toolkit on trauma informed practice. So then there'll be a case study that applies that learning around trauma informed practice to children and families, social work. There'll be one on adults, and that will incorporate mental health as well. And then as the third component of every toolkit is some facilitator guidance. And basically what that is a Q&A crib sheet for the team manager or the facilitator of that group supervision. So it does all the preparation. We've done all the preparation, so that sort of group facilitator doesn't need to go away and think about questions they're going to ask about the case study. They don't need to do all that prep.
Okay. So then for an organisation then, who would you expect would be delivering the training? So it's not that we're delivering the training, so we give them the toolkit, and then who goes ahead? You said team managers.
Yeah, exactly that. So we give them, or an organisation will have access to those toolkits, and everything that they need in the toolkit is on the online website. And the person who kind of organises the team or the group, it could be a group of newly qualified social workers, it could be a multidisciplinary group, because we have a mental health trust who use the SWOT toolkits, and they have, like, say, for example, a group of safeguarding leads, so there'll be different disciplines there. So there needs to be somebody, a team manager, an advanced practitioner, or somebody who will kind of organise that team or group to complete a toolkit. So they'll share the logins, they'll say, we're going to do the toolkit on trauma-informed practice. Can everybody complete the online learning within the next couple of weeks? And then we'll get together in our group supervision on X date, and we'll look at the case studies and apply that learning. And so it could be a range of different people. It could be a team manager, it could be a workforce development lead, whoever is working with that group or that team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. And so the toolkits, what sort of topics do they cover, and who kind of develops these toolkits? Who does them?
Yep, great question. So primarily, so far, there are 13 toolkits with more in the pipeline. Primarily, it's been researchers who've written the toolkits, but many of the teams who've created a toolkit also include practitioners. Mm-hmm. So for example, if I just talk about my own, I've got 3 toolkits there that are all rooted in my research around either domestic violence and abuse, or trauma, or working with people who have trans or non-binary gender identities. But I've partnered up with a practitioner, and the practitioner has then worked with me to create those case studies. So there's an element of co-design in there with people who are actually out in practice. So they're not all created just by academics.
Okay, but there's always academic research.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always each toolkit's evidence informed. So that by that I mean there's current research in there or developments in theory. So they're up to date. They're rooted in that kind of evidence, whether that's theoretical evidence or research. We also have a QA panel, a quality assurance panel, that is made up of practitioners and people with lived experience, and they look at each toolkit and judge whether it's kind of meeting a set of quality criteria in terms of, like, for example, being accessible in the language that is used, pointing to resources, ensuring that those resources are open and available to anybody. There's questions on there about, does the toolkit engage with the voice of a person with lived experience or experience of social care? So there's lots of different kind of components in terms of the creation of a toolkit, and it's all about ensuring that the toolkits are evidence informed, are up to date, engage with social cultural issues that are relevant to practice, and also kind of embed the voice of the person with lived experience.
Okay, fantastic. And so have you, so how long has the SWOT project been going?
It's been going since 2021.
Right.
So, yeah, in 2021, I got some money from the Department for Education to develop a new kind of model for CPD. And that enabled me then to work with, well, you were the research assistant on the project.
It was me.
It was you. And some of the colleagues of ours at the University of Sheffield and a colleague at Sheffield Hallam University. And we designed and then piloted and evaluated the SWOT toolkit model with, I think there was 7 teams across different children and families, social care services in our region.
Okay, and do you want to talk a bit about the sort of evaluation, how SWOT's been received and whether people found it useful?
Yeah, of course. So that original project in 21-22 evaluated the design, and basically, as I said, 7 teams used and then gave us feedback on that sort of first ever created toolkit, which was about children's participation in child protection processes. And the evaluation, we had a little survey, we did some interviews, we gained feedback from the team managers who'd taken that facilitator role, and then the participants, the social workers. And the evaluation was overwhelmingly positive. There was some feedback around language and its accessibility. Overwhelmingly, people enjoyed completing the toolkit. They liked learning within the context of their team because they knew people, enable that deeper level of learning, that application of knowledge from the online module. Have I missed anything out? You were part of that original pilot, so you know.
No, I think that covers it. I think, you know, because I know that the people who experienced the training found it really useful. I think people liked talking as a team and liked sharing their experiences, and it was good for kind of team building, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the facilitators also liked it because they didn't have to do loads of preparation, and because it was there, they could change it or adapt it for their specific team if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But it was already there if they needed it. So it did evaluate really well.
Yeah. And one thing, I don't know if you remember this. Yeah, one thing that really stands out for me is we got one social worker who reflected on the toolkit and then said in their written feedback something like, some weeks later I used that learning in my practice, so actually you know, it was really useful because I could use it in the future. So then we kind of captured that change that it had kind of that it created, for want of a better word, for that person in her practice. She was able to put into practice what she'd learned, which was really invaluable, and we've kind of had that a few times. So we're continuing to gather that feedback from people. So, for example, after the Hare Hills riot in Leeds last year, we sent a reminder out to our organisations who subscribe to SWOTT to remind them that we've got a toolkit on working with Gypsy, Roma, traveller communities. And what we got in feedback was for somebody, one of the subscribing organisations, they then used the toolkit that week after the Hare Hills riot. And if you remember, I think you were there, and we had a conversation with one of the people, and she was saying, I started that process before I did the online training thinking, I don't have any prejudice, I don't have any kind of like bias. Completed the SWOT toolkit, you know, took part in that group conversation with other people, and she admitted, yeah, actually it made me think about my own values and perspectives and the way that I think about Roma and traveller communities, and I realised that I did have some bias.
Yeah. And
that was really kind of powerful in terms of hearing her reflections and then discussing with her how it will change her practice moving forward.
Yeah, definitely it was. I guess, is it worth saying anything talking about the sort of value for money? So obviously one of the things we've done is we've looked at the usage from the different organisations and looked at how many people have accessed the online learning. And then if you look at the amount that they have there is a subscription fee, that actually they're all paying somewhere between £5 and I think it was £25 per individual for training. So that's really good value for money as well. I mean, obviously we're not for profit, so
yeah, and that's really important that we are not for profit. You know, we are the university is a charity in itself, and the SWOT toolkit does create. We do get a small subscription fee each year from the subscribing organisations, and that pays for the upkeep of the website, the administrative kind of demands on maintaining that, but it also enables me to then think about any gaps in knowledge or respond to people's requests for specific toolkits, and then I can commission people. So, for example, one of the organisations that subscribed to SWOT asked if we could create a toolkit on neurodiversity. There wasn't anybody at the time who was doing any research in our school, or I didn't have any contacts. So I went outside of the university and commissioned an organisation called Crease Puddle, who are set up just to do training on neurodiversity. So they are the experts. And the person who I work with had actually done research for a PhD on neurodiversity. So she could still use her research to create this toolkit, but what it meant was that the toolkit was really rooted in expertise of people with lived experience of neurodiversity.
Yeah, fantastic. So what can you talk a bit about our plans for how we want to develop SWOT and what our plans are for the future?
Yeah, not world domination.
No, not yet.
Not yet, no. That'll be stage 2. So plans are to develop the resources. So we've got a couple of... Oh, so you asked me before about the toolkits and how many. So we've got 13 at the moment, and there's the themes vary quite significantly. I've mentioned a couple. So we've got, like, for example, an introduction to neurodiversity, an introduction to trauma-informed practice. We've got the one on working with Roma and traveller communities. We've got one on disclosure of child sexual abuse. That is obviously from your PhD research.
Yeah.
We've got one on restorative conversations, gender diversity and identity, doing what is professional when we're doing home visits. So a real broad range of topics. We've got 2 coming down the line, which one will be on women with learning disabilities and domestic abuse, and another one on child criminal exploitation, which does have a children and families focus, but that also embeds things around cocooing and sort of adult focused topics, subjects. And we've got lots of ideas for the next year for new toolkits. So the resource is growing all the time. In addition, we are piloting the toolkits outside of our current region, and working with teaching partnerships in Scotland, working with a regional service as part of the Alcohol and Drugs Service, and we are currently working with BASWA, hopefully going to work in partnership to develop a sort of model whereby independent social workers can access the SWOT toolkits. So we're looking at the gaps in kind of social workers and social care professionals' access to CPD.
Fantastic. And we're also talking about looking at improving the website.
Yep.
And redesigning that, and maybe recording the online learning as well, so people can listen to it rather than necessarily, if they don't want to be looking at a screen, they can listen to it instead.
And that's really important, isn't it? Because as we were just discussing the other day, some practitioners who do have learning needs or communication needs, might not be able to engage with the online learning in the same way as others. So we're trying to really think about how we make access inclusive and accessible. So, producing kind of the resources into a podcast material might be one way of doing that.
Yeah.
So it's exciting because we're trying to kind of develop and think about what works best for people's learning, while still maintaining that focus on what we know about people's learning is that it's enhanced when it's done in a kind of a group or with another person in that peer learning kind of approach.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think that's the end of my questions.
I'm SWOT exhausted. I don't know what else I can say.
So I guess basically what we're trying to say about SWOT is that it's a fantastic new resource, that it's been developed at the University of Sheffield. It's based in research, rooted in research, but we also try and include the voice of people with lived experience of social work, and also learn from practitioners as well. And to get in touch with us if they're interested in having a look at SWOT.
Absolutely.
Can meet them and talk them through.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.